Hello and welcome to the Services School Stories podcast. You'll hear from veterans and partners who'll share their stories and insights about how you can use higher education to transition from the military and achieve your goals. Now let's get going.
Welcome back, everyone. For those of you that do not recognize my voice, I am Whitney Cason, the Director of VetLink for Services School. I am a military spouse and a longtime educator at both the high school and community college level and have experience reading transfer and non-traditional applications. Today, I will be joined by Christina and Evan of Dartmouth and Bowdoin. And we're going to be discussing one of the biggest topics that I interact with service members about, which is access to opportunities, and how students need to explore what they are looking for out of an institution, and not picking an institution based on name and prestige alone, but what that institution has to offer the student themselves. And again, that looks different for each student depending on their individual needs. So without further ado, I will actually, Evan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Whitney. Well, hello, everyone. Very glad to be joining the podcast today. My name is Evan Shoaf. I'm a Senior Assistant Dean of Admissions here at Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine, and I coordinate our veteran admission for the college. I've been with Bowdoin for about 7 years now and have been working with veterans. This is my second cycle.
Christina?
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Christina Moreland. I'm an Associate Director of Admission at Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire. This is my second year at Dartmouth, but it's my seventh or eighth or so in college admissions broadly, and have been able to work with veteran applicants throughout that time, but really focusing on it and acting as our coordinator for veteran applicants over the last 2 years.
All right, thank you. So we'll just dive right into it. How does your school support veteran applicants throughout the admissions process?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I want to say the college admissions process can be challenging and confusing and maybe occasionally frustrating for any of our applicants. I think it can be particularly true if you're coming out of the service and maybe you're, a good few years apart from your high school career and you're not getting the support that a lot of high schoolers are getting from their guidance and college counseling offices. So we already recognize it can be difficult and confusing for anyone, but particularly there can be challenges for our service member and veteran applicants. So we recognize that. And I think to that end, we really try to have there be a personal one-on-one approach. And that can't be true of every applicant. Bowdoin received over 14,000 applications this year. And so we can't chat with everyone individually, but we do make sure to do that and make ourselves available for our veteran applicants. And so with Bowdoin specifically, we do offer veteran interviews. We encourage you to seek these out. You chat with me for 20 to 30 minutes. You hear the word interview, you think you need to wear a suit and be formal, and it's not that. It's just chatting with me, and I'm a friendly person for 20 to 30 minutes. And it's a way for us to learn more about you, what you're looking for in a college education, how you might need support in this process. And I can answer any questions in that initial conversation, but really it's the start of a relationship where I'm working with you in the months that it might take for you to put together an application, to gather materials, to support you if you do end up getting admitted to Bowdoin and want to attend and make sure the transition is smooth. So we just want to make sure that we here at Bowdoin ensure that everyone knows, everyone in the veteran community knows that we are here for a one-on-one approach and to make sure that we are working with you as an individual, knowing you have individual needs and concerns.
Yeah, at Dartmouth, I will echo really everything that Evan said, especially this piece of we completely understand that the admissions process can feel very daunting, can be very stressful, can be very confusing for absolutely any of our applicants. And then when a non-traditional student is approaching that, it can feel even more daunting in that way. So we really want to create opportunities for you to have those one-on-one conversations with the admissions team, with financial aid, with alumni, with current students, with the resources throughout the process while you're considering applying to us, while you're applying if you choose to apply, after being admitted, while you're making decisions about where to go. Having that kind of personal touch, we think, is so crucially important to really understanding your place on our campus. We want to help you to do that. So that kind of transparency of, if you have questions going into the application, being available to you as much as we can for our veterans. We try to, again, have that availability for any of our thousands of students who are applying, but we know for veterans in particular, they have questions that are not going to be as immediately available to find answers to on our website all of the time, or on kind of college admissions blogs or resources online. So we want to give those resources. We want to be flexible with what our expectations are for the application and our requirements. We want to know students are prepared to come in, but sometimes you're applying as a transfer and we ask for certain documents from high school that maybe are hard to come by, or you've had a very different experience with taking classes where maybe a military supervisor is going to be a better recommender for you than a college instructor from an online course. And we're willing and very happy to do that because we know that's going to help your process. We do also, guarantee that we want to offer you an interview as a veteran in a way that we don't necessarily do for the rest of our transfer applicant pool. And when we can, we ask a veteran interviewer from Dartmouth to do that interview. And if we can, even beyond that, ask someone who's served in your same military branch to do that, because they can kind of get that exact experience beyond what you might put in a service to school application as well, or a VetLink application about what your experience has been. But to have someone who knows Dartmouth come in and say, this person's experience is going to so clearly line up with, this aspect of being a student here, we think is so valuable. Standardized testing is generally a requirement for Dartmouth now, but we are still flexible and optional for our transfer applicants and our veterans in particular who have not taken a test in pursuing their college courses that they've taken up to this point. If they didn't need to take an SAT or ACT to take those classes, we're not going to ask them to find access to an SAT test center at this time if that's not going to work for them. And that's been true, for years and years, not just a recent kind of addition for us. So that flexibility is really important for us overall.
I just want to highlight Christina, saying the word flexibility a couple of times. I think it's so important. And I think if you're going to draw away a one-word theme from this conversation, one of the themes, flexibility, is absolutely one of the top ones. Schools like Bowdoin, schools like Dartmouth, we want to be flexible with our non-traditional applicants because we recognize when you're filling out the Common App, when you're looking at our admissions pages, a lot of things may not seem like they apply to your situation. And so I think that's at the core of the reason why we want you to get in touch with us. We want to have an individual conversation with you. One, so we can be flexible, but two, so we can help you put the best application forward and make sure that you're putting together the best application that you can.
I will say I am always impressed with the level of care and concern that you do have for our veteran applicants. I know, Evan, I've reached out to you last minute to triage situations or ask, pretty specific questions since every service member is different and every service member is coming from a vastly different background. And you guys are able to really, work with them and their individual circumstance to make sure that they're putting their best application forward. And I'm always impressed with you guys and how you will go above and beyond for each one of our service members. One of the questions that I get asked often when it comes to schools and things like that is financial aid. So I would love for our veterans to hear what, kind of like a surface level of, what financial aid looks like for each one of your institutions. Evan?
Thank you, Whitney. Yeah, so Bowdoin is proud of having one of the best financial aid programs in the country. We are one of a select number of schools in the world that meets full calculated need without loans for all of our applicants, and we don't consider financial aid in our admission process for any applicant, regardless of their citizenship. So if you're looking at schools like Bowdoin and Dartmouth, you've probably heard all of those words like need blind, meet full need, and no loans and everything. So just at a very basic level, if you're getting financial aid awards from institutions directly, you may be, wanting to use your benefits. You may get a financial aid award letter that uses your benefits. At Bowdoin, for every military dependent and service member and veteran, we prepare two financial aid award letters, one that applies their benefits and one that applies Bowdoin institutional aid. And then students are allowed to choose which one they want to use, and our aid counselors, again, can have a very individualized one-on-one conversation so that veterans or any military actually affiliated student, because our military dependents have this apply to them sometimes too, make sure they're making the right decision. But from an institutional aid perspective, when you're getting an institutional aid award, what college aid offices are doing are collecting information from you and then asking what can we reasonably ask the student to contribute to the cost of the education, and then looking at the total cost of attending the institution for that student, which includes billed expenses like tuition, housing, meals, but also indirect expenses, traveling to campus from wherever your home may be, books, any other incidentals that may come up. And for schools that do not package loans into their aid awards, what we're saying is in meeting any of that unmet need between what we're expecting the student to contribute, which may be $0, and that total cost of attending the institution, we're not going to meet any of that gap with a student loan expectation. We do not put loans into our aid awards. And that's very important for us to make sure we're making a commitment to all of our students, I think particularly our service members and veterans, to make sure that this is a financially rewarding option to be able to attend a school like Bowdoin. But the main thing I think I want to emphasize in this part of the conversation is, again, flexibility. You will get two aid awards, one with your benefits, one with Bowdoin's institutional aid. And then our aid counselors will have a very individualized conversation with you to make sure that you are making the right decision.
Very important. Thank you. Christina.
Yeah, I'll ditto much of what Evan said in terms of Dartmouth is also an institution that is need blind, where needing or requesting financial aid that is not going to impact whether or not you're admitted to our institution. And so the fact that we would be providing you financial aid does not change whether or not we're able to admit an applicant, which is a very exciting privilege of ours and of Bowdoin's and of institutions like ours to not feel like we are limited in the number of students who are going to have financial need that we're able to admit. We are also a no loan institution and will meet full need for our students regardless of citizenship status. So it's a very privileged place for us to be in with that. And also, like, again, the flexibility, the being able to connect with our financial aid staff to really talk through an award to make sure that they have all the information they need to get you a full aid package. It's one of those things that, much like with the admissions process, can feel daunting to reach out and make that ask, or to feel like you're, bothering someone or asking for more than you think you're entitled to. And that's not the case. We want you to connect with our financial aid team and ask those questions in order to make sure that we are giving you all of the resources we can provide. So that's very important for us. We're also a participant in the GI Bill, Yellow Ribbon programs. We do not limit the number of students who can access those benefits. The former president of Dartmouth, Jim Wright, was a U.S. Marine and was very involved with drafting the language for the post 9/11 GI Bill, which is something I always want to shout out for Dartmouth's connection to that program. It's very something we're very proud of. So yes, so really kind of echoing all these pieces of we want to get you those resources to make this education affordable for you. So connecting with our staff to make that happen is something I absolutely encourage.
I also, when any student, but also, veterans and service members ask about financial aid, we always like to emphasize, yes, there's the annual financial aid award that roughly over half our students and currently all of our veterans are receiving. All of the veterans actually on Bowdoin's campus chose to go with Bowdoin's institutional aid and to save their benefits. And we can have that process work and support you, and that can get you to campus. You can sign up for classes and get here in August, but we always like to start the conversation of thinking of, how else can we support you when you're here? What other sort of hidden costs might you encounter as a college student? And I always love getting to do conversations like this because I get to learn about what other institutions do to support their students, and then we can maybe steal ideas and I can bring them to our leadership team. But I'll just throw out one thing that Bowdoin started doing a few years ago that we're really proud of, and that was our digital excellence commitment, where every single incoming student now receives from Bowdoin free of charge a MacBook Pro, iPad, and Apple Pencil. And this was something that was born out of a few years ago, recognizing how important technology and access to technology is for education in the modern era. And I think that's just one way Bowdoin is trying to identify all these various hidden costs or barriers to thriving at a school like Bowdoin. And that's just one of them. And I always love learning about how other schools are supporting their students and certainly supporting their veterans on campus.
I really greatly appreciate conversations like this because, again, I get a lot of service members who, like to go for names of institutions. And I love being able to go, hey, I think, I love those institutions. I absolutely think you should apply to them. But like, I really think you need to really explore what some of our smaller liberal arts schools have to offer. They have things that are so unique to them, to each of your institutions that I don't think can necessarily be replicated at a larger scale for some of these schools. So I'm always impressed every time I speak to any one of you. And I love it because every time I talk to you, I think something else has changed and something else has improved. Because again, you guys are learning from what other institutions are doing and what you guys are capable of doing and providing. So that being part of the conversation, every service member should always ask about financial aid, and what institutions have. But also, one of the things that need to consider is, what's the veteran community like on your campus? How does your school foster a sense of belonging for the non-traditional student?
I'll say, and I think this will be true for Evan as well, from what I understand at Bowdoin. Like, Dartmouth is a smaller institution in general, so we have 4,400 undergraduate students. So we're not tiny, but certainly on the smaller side. Our veteran population is within that smaller community. They themselves are a small community as well, but it really means the community in general at Dartmouth is very tight-knit. The veteran community within Dartmouth is also quite tight-knit. And so that happens very naturally, but also we do have a very active undergraduate student veteran cohort that connects with each other. They are doing social events all the time. They want to connect with one another. Something that I think is really just special with our community. We're, again, a smaller space. We're in a smaller town in Hanover, and Lou's, which is a bakery, restaurant, diner kind of space in town, is owned by a Marine Corps veteran who does basically the first Friday of every month, like, invites the veterans on campus in for a free meal. And so they take advantage of that. So there is this really kind of sense of belonging, not only within Dartmouth, but also the town itself. So I think there's the kind of resources for our student veteran group. We have graduate programs at Dartmouth that are also small, but also have a very significant veteran population in our business school. And so they are connecting with our undergraduates about the experience of going to business school, but also just their overall veteran experience too. We have a dedicated staff member, Morgan O'Green, who I'll shout out, who's our assistant dean for undergraduate student veterans, who her role is to act as an advisor for all of our undergraduate veterans about the experience of being a Dartmouth student, like any advisor, but also to think about access to benefits, or are they having trouble connecting with the VA? Are they in a very particular situation with trying to figure out what kind of housing they want or need access to, that the rest of the college wants to support them in, but to have someone who is also a veteran herself be able to sit in this position of, like, I know how it works and I know where the resources are, both inside and outside of Dartmouth, and how can I be really dedicated to making that happen for you. So all of those kinds of resources on top of, in general, I don't think our veterans feel siloed within Dartmouth, where they can only connect with their dean for veterans. They can only connect with the other veteran students on campus. They're part of the entire community, and they're doing absolutely everything else. They're members of the classroom spaces. They're participating in other clubs and activities and sports and athletics and arts and everything on campus, internships, studying abroad. So they are very much a part of that overall cohort, but to have someone who's had their experience, is of a similar age to them, can really connect with that kind of transition into Dartmouth is also really crucial. So we really put a lot of resources and care and attention into making sure that's true for them.
I'll certainly echo a lot of what Christina has said. Bowdoin is also a small school. We're also an entirely undergraduate college. So every student at Bowdoin is either a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. We won't have business students. We don't have master's students. It's an undergraduate focused institution intentionally. And we're also intentionally small. Again, one of the core philosophies of Bowdoin as an institution is we want students to have one-on-one support here. We don't want you ever to be a number. If you are going into the registrar's office to talk about credits, if you're going to financial aid, if you're going to the dean's office, people will know you by name, they will recognize you, and they will be keeping up with you for your 4 years here. So we have a total student enrollment of about 2,000 students at Bowdoin. And when you incorporate students who may be studying abroad or on domestic exchange programs in any given semester, our on-campus enrollment is about 1,800 in any given year. And that means our student veteran population is small because any specific population at a school of our size is going to be small. But it's a growing group due to efforts like these, and I think efforts among everyone at the college to have our veteran population grow. And as we launched for the first time the Bowdoin Student Veterans Organization this year, and as I was working with some students, we thought, how can we bring in other members of the community and certainly other members of the student body that could also support our veterans and could be really great advocates and allies for them. And we identified a few key populations that I've heard of other schools working with as well. And so the three areas we identified were we have international students who may have served in their own country's armed services, and they can provide a really interesting perspective as well to what college life might be like for someone who has served. We have students here who are military dependents, whose parents or guardians are active service members. We have students who told us in their application essays that they were a military brat and they grew up going to 7 different schools, and they bring a really valuable perspective. And we have students even who are thinking about enlisting after their time at Bowdoin and joining our armed services. And so there are a lot of populations, even beyond the immediate group of student veterans at Bowdoin, that are really committed to the success of these students and want to be a part of this community. And I think that's one way, just in the past year, we've seen the prominence of student veterans at Bowdoin grow.
Wonderful. I can't say enough about that one-on-one support. And how I really truly believe that it is what can make or break a service member being successful at certain, more intensive institutions. So knowing that there is a dedicated person at Dartmouth and knowing that there is a small organization at Bowdoin that is your support system, that really and truly, those are the people that can get you through a program sometimes and give you that motivation. It's huge. It was something that was a very big part of my husband's experience when he went back to school. And I cannot say enough about the value of having those supports on campus. And part of that, can you kind of tell me some success stories of the veterans who have attended your school? Christina, we'll start with you at Dartmouth.
Yeah, I was just this morning, we have one of our sophomores who's a veteran and a transfer applicant who just wrote a blog post that's going on our website, and I was reading it over and just kind of remembering his experience, where he is someone who he applied 3 times to Dartmouth and was admitted on his 3rd time. And so for him, like, his just overall story is something that really sticks with me, of is someone who, really did not had a challenging time in high school, is someone who, went into the military and really changed his life, and then came out and wanted to immediately transfer in, didn't quite have the the academic experiences that were going to set him up yet, but he kept working for it and really had that kind of resilience, determination that we see in our veteran applicants, and we know is going to help set them up for success when they get here, put in the work, because he knew that he wanted to be here and on our campus and work with us. And we saw that same kind of impact and growth and change in him. And we said, you're prepared, you're ready for this. And he came in and has absolutely been thriving as a student here, and is really widely involved, like does not feel any kind of limitation with being a little bit of an older student or someone who's come from a different experience, is fully involved in our outing club and is now a tour guide for us, and doesn't want to just come in and say, I want to be a resource for veteran applicants, though he does want to be that as well, but wants to be, he knows he's part of the entire Dartmouth community and can really engage in that, which is really exciting. I think overall our students come in and they have a very real impact on our community. They're leaders that really have a strong voice in our classroom spaces, and it's a voice that our faculty are very keen to have more of, and they tell us that in the admissions process. They love having that kind of experience and that voice in the classroom. It really adds so much to the conversation overall, and so they are making changes. I had a few years back, we had a veteran who came onto campus and did a lot of work as a female in the military, had a lot of experiences around kind of what being a woman in a predominantly male space has meant for her. And so that was something that, even though Dartmouth is not a predominantly male space anymore, she could still see, those indications of a space that had been historically very one kind of identity. And so she did a lot of work with supporting African-American students on campus, on changing resources for women on campus around sexual assault prevention and awareness. And that was something that she had a lot of really core beliefs on, creating a safe space for students of every background, that she had really come in with after her experience in the military and made real change at Dartmouth as well. And so we know students come in and are leaders on our campus, and we come out of seeing those students be really successful outside of the classroom as well as in it. They're doing well in their courses. They're really thriving in that kind of liberal arts environment where they can have really dedicated conversations. It's not just kind of one person in a lecture hall just receiving information. They're fully involved in the learning experience with their classmates, and we think their experience in the military lends itself so well to that. So we find that our students are enormously successful.
Wonderful. Evan, how is it at Bowdoin?
I first want to say that, if you're a student veteran who is admitted to Bowdoin, you are very much ready to succeed here. And that is because we have worked with you very closely. We've reviewed a ton of your information. If you're working with service to school, it's likely we've learned more about you from service to school. And no one is ever admitted to Bowdoin accidentally. We are in the process of admitting students right now, and every student who is admitted gets a number of very close eyes on them. And for our veterans, we have decided this is a really great student who will succeed in the classroom, who will become a leader on campus, and will graduate and develop some prominence out in the world. And that remains true in your time at Bowdoin when you have that one-on-one support. I think one thing I want to highlight is that our veterans can still do basically all of the kind of traditional college things, for lack of a better term, that all of our other students are doing. And I'll highlight just two examples, maybe three. So veterans can study abroad. Of course, in the service, you may have had a lot of global experiences, but you can do that in a more academic setting at Bowdoin. One of our current veterans, Ian Stewart, who was a Navy nuke, is down in Argentina for the year, and he is a Spanish major, and so is focusing on his Spanish abilities. Our veterans can become tour guides. We're actually going to have our very first veteran tour guide starting in the fall, which we're really excited about, with Kane Alvarez, who is a current first year and has become a really prominent member not only of the veteran community but of campus, and will be able to share with hundreds of prospective students and their families why Bowdoin could be a really great fit for them. We have students who become residential life leaders. We have students who work in the dining hall. You'll see them in the kitchen who are veterans. These are just some of the ways that they've become fully integrated with the Bowdoin community, just like all of our students. And while we recognize that for many of our non-traditional students and for our veterans and for military dependents or military affiliated students, there may be special needs, and therefore we do provide that one-on-one support, and we have special protocols as necessary. At the end of the day, we want these students to know that you belong at Bowdoin just like any other student, and you can have some of these same great experiences that make up kind of a classic college education.
That I love hearing that. I love hearing that our service members are actively making change at their campuses and leaving their mark, literally at an institution that, they would not have had access to, potentially in the past. And so I love hearing that and seeing that they are, really and truly just integrating beautifully and, doing amazing things, which I have no doubt also translate them to doing amazing things once they leave your institutions and go on to do great things. As we go to kind of wrap up this conversation, is there any advice that you would give to veterans considering applying to your school, or particularly those that may feel that they don't fit that traditional applicant mold?
I think one thing that I'll say is that, first of all, this idea of a kind of traditional applicant mold, I think we are looking at you as bringing in a unique perspective, and we want that on our campuses. And so coming in without a quote unquote traditional experience is something that is, an advantage that you have with applying to us. We want to see that different perspective. And even beyond that, this idea of kind of the traditional applicant is one that is a very loose kind of idea. I think there's many different ways that students come to us, and, coming in as a military veteran is a unique pathway in comparison to many of the thousands of applicants that we're seeing, but there is not one set applicant that we are admitting to Dartmouth or to Bowdoin or to any institution. We want to bring in a diversity of experiences and viewpoints in our classrooms. It creates a better college environment, and you are adding to that. So I think the advice I would give is really just understanding that you are someone that we want on our campuses, and really owning that and telling us who you are and who you're going to be when you get to our campuses really helps us when I'm reading an application from a veteran say, this person can see themselves here, so I can see them here. And really having that kind of voice telling us your story and what you hope to bring and what you hope to get out of being on our campuses comes through. And, you seeing that helps us see it. So really just owning what your experience has been, not apologizing for having a different experience. It's something that is an add, not a con to your experience. It's something we're very excited about.
I'll absolutely echo Christina there. And I think, if you want to put yourself in the brain of an admissions officer, if you want to pretend you're Christina or Evan for the day and you're reading applications, we're always keeping in mind that institutions like Bowdoin or Dartmouth, they're not places where students are driving to campus in the morning, sitting in a lecture hall for 2 hours, taking a test, and then driving home. These are residential communities. When you're a student at schools like ours, you're a 24/7 member of that community. And so when we're reading files or envisioning students in class discussions, in group projects, out on the athletic fields, Bowdoin student government meetings on Wednesday nights, as a residence leader, in the dining halls, we're envisioning all these scenarios where our students are going to share their experiences, their opinions, their viewpoints, their ideas, their hopes. And we're always imagining those different scenarios. And our veteran applicants can fit in really strongly in those scenarios because of their really unique perspective and experiences that they bring to our campus. So just wanted to say that. And also do want to emphasize specifically for Bowdoin that for veterans, regardless of your prior education history, you have the option to enter either as a transfer or as a first year if you would like to. And this is one of the things that's why we encourage you to reach out to me and chat with me so we can talk through the difference. But for our transfers, you get transfer credit, you come into a more advanced class standing. Some of our veterans have done that, and they spend fewer than 4 years on Bowdoin's campus. And some of our other veterans have decided, I want the full traditional 4-year college experience, start to finish. And regardless of your education history, you do have that option for Bowdoin. So please reach out if you would like to discuss further. But no matter which entry program you choose, you will be successful here.
Thank you both. Really and truly, if there's anything that I can emphasize for service members out of this whole conversation, it's think about what you need and want out of an institution. Not the name, not the prestige, not any of those things, but it's what you need, the individual student, to be successful and to go on and do that follow on that you want. But, really look into and research the institution. And if you question anything, either reach out to myself, your advisor, or, reach out to the representatives at the institution like Christina and Evan, to have a conversation and to make sure that those things align and that they have everything that you're looking for. Or, better yet, they'll introduce you to things that you had no idea that they had to offer. So again, thank you for taking the time, and I wish you all the absolute very best as you are reading applications and as our applicants are putting in their applications.
Thank you, Whitney.
That's all we have for this episode. Join us next week, same time, same place, where we share more Service to School stories. Service to School Stories is hosted by Sydney Mathis, Chief Program Officer, and Alec Emmert, Service to School CEO. Our podcast is produced and edited by our Director of Communication, Amanda Tobias. Service to School is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free college admission support to transitioning service members and veterans. Join us next week and follow us for more on your favorite social media platforms.